Okay, we just got a new leak, and it might completely change who you plan to pull next. New information is pointing toward the version 1.1 characters, their roles, and how they connect to existing teams like Yvonne's. At the same time, internal game data is showing signs of a completely new damage type already built into the system. In this video, everything will be explained clearly so you know what these characters bring and why this new damage category could matter for the future. From now on, I'll be doing one monthly pass giveaway in every video. The rules are very simple. Just leave a comment with your Lootbar UID, and the winner will receive a free coupon that they can redeem on Lootbar. Also, on Lootbar, you can save up to 26% on your in-game top-ups, so definitely check it out. The link is in the description. First, let's talk about Tangtang, because this is the part that immediately caught people's attention. The latest information circulating across Chinese communities and discussion hubs describes her as a caster-type unit aligned with Cryo. That detail alone already tells a lot, because in Endfield, the class is just as important as the element. Casters specialize in applying elemental inflictions consistently from range, and that makes them extremely valuable in setups that depend on building stacks over time. Right now, Cryo application is one of the biggest limitations for certain teams. Yvonne, for example, relies heavily on Cryo inflictions to reach her full damage potential. Her entire damage loop revolves around consuming Cryo stacks to trigger solidification and increase her scaling. Without a teammate who can apply Cryo reliably and quickly, her rotation becomes slower and less efficient. This is why the idea of Tangtang being a cryocaster immediately makes sense from a gameplay perspective. A ranged cryo applicator would allow cryo stacks to stay active almost constantly, which means Yvonne could enter her burst windows more often and maintain higher uptime. This follows a pattern seen many times in similar games. A powerful damage dealer appears first, and shortly after, a new character arrives that strengthens their consistency and makes their rotation smoother. It's not about replacing the original character, it's about completing the team structure that makes them function properly over long fights. What makes this even more interesting is that earlier internal data references tied Tangtang to elemental interaction buffs, which suggests she isn't just dealing damage, but actively interacting with elemental mechanics. That reinforces the idea that her value may come from enabling reactions and supporting team flow, not simply acting as a standalone damage dealer. And even though some players expected her to be a physical-focused character based on her weapon model and story presence, Endfield's class system doesn't strictly follow weapon appearance. In this universe, weapons often function as casting tools rather than traditional firearms, so seeing a ranged character categorized as a caster is completely consistent with how the system works. Now moving to Rossi, this is where things become even more unusual. The information tied to her describes her as a guard aligned with fire. At first glance, that sounds contradictory. Normally, fire element characters would focus directly on heat damage and heat inflictions, but guards operate differently. Guards are close-range combatants, and their primary function often involves applying abnormality effects or physical-style damage pressure rather than pure elemental application. This means Rossi could belong to the fire category while still focusing on abnormality-based damage output instead of traditional heat-based elemental damage. This distinction is extremely important because Endfield separates elemental alignment from actual damage behavior. A character's element determines how they interact with resistances and team bonuses, but their class and skill design determine how their damage is applied. That opens the door for characters who belong to one element but support entirely different team archetypes. In Rossi's case, this suggests she may function more as a frontline abnormality-focused damage dealer rather than a traditional fire elemental damage unit. That would give physical-style teams or abnormality-focused teams a stronger melee option, especially since most current fire-aligned characters lean toward elemental scaling instead of sustained frontline pressure. Looking at timing, version 1.1 is expected to follow the standard 6-week update structure, which places its release window starting in mid-March and running through late April. That aligns with how banner rotations normally work, where each new character receives their own banner period within the patch cycle. The launch version had more characters because it needed to establish the base roster and long-term banner pool, but moving forward, 2 characters per version is the expected rhythm. This makes Tangtang and Rossi the logical next additions in sequence, continuing the gradual expansion of elemental and class coverage. By the way, when the channel hits 1,500 subscribers, I'll be doing 3 monthly pass giveaways, so if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the giveaway and the latest banner updates. Now, while players are still discussing how these 2 characters will affect existing teams, another discovery has created even bigger long-term implications. Internal game data already includes references to an additional damage category called Ether. This isn't something visible in gameplay yet, but resistance values and internal damage identifiers associated with Ether already exist, alongside physical, heat, electric, cryo, and nature. That matters because damage categories are deeply connected to combat calculations. Resistance values only exist if the game is prepared to handle that damage type. Developers don't include unused resistance systems without planning to use them later. This strongly suggests that Ether is part of the game's future expansion. Each current damage category has a clear role. Physical focuses on abnormality pressure and direct impact. Heat applies burning effects over time. Electric creates chaining and control interactions. Cryo enables freezing and shatter-based damage. Nature focuses on corrosion and sustained damage effects. Ether would introduce an entirely new category alongside these systems, which naturally raises questions about how it would interact with enemies and team compositions. The presence of its resistance values shows that the foundation is already built into the combat system, even if no characters are using it yet. This kind of gradual expansion follows a familiar pattern. New damage types usually appear after players have already built their first teams, creating new strategies and encouraging players to rethink their compositions. It also helps prevent the combat system from becoming predictable too early. Instead of simply increasing numbers, new damage categories introduce entirely new interactions, which keeps team building fresh over time. Putting everything together, version 1.1 looks like a transition point. Tangtang appears positioned to strengthen cryo application and improve consistency for cryo-dependent teams, while Rossi introduces a different kind of frontline pressure within the fire category that could support abnormality-focused playstyles rather than traditional elemental damage setups. At the same time, the discovery of Ether within the game's internal systems shows that the combat framework is designed to expand further, meaning the current 5 damage type structure is not the final form of the system. This also explains why team building right now feels incomplete in certain areas. Some damage categories and application roles are still limited, and each new character gradually fills those gaps. Instead of releasing everything at once, the roster expands step by step, allowing new characters to redefine how existing ones perform. That's why understanding roles and mechanics early is so important. It helps decide which teams will grow stronger over time and which characters will benefit the most from future additions. As more information appears and version 1.1 gets closer, the overall picture will become clearer, especially regarding how Tangtang and Rossi actually function in real combat situations and how future damage categories will fit into the system. For now, the direction is becoming easier to see. The game isn't just adding characters, it's building layers into its combat system piece by piece. If you want more updates and clear breakdowns as new information appears and version 1.1 gets closer, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Also, on Lootbar, you can save up to 26% on your in-game top-ups, so definitely check it out. The link is in the description.